Sudden success sometimes is a blessing for tennis players, but for Emma Raducanu, it appears to be a burden. Lots of attention and unnecessary pressure. Having found herself going from overachievement to harboring fears of failure, you've got to ask, what really happened to Emma Raducanu? It's been 20 long months since Emma Raducanu's legendary run to win the 2021 US Open. She did one of the wildest things ever seen in tennis history, becoming the first singles qualifier in the Open era to win a Grand Slam title. You know what's even crazier? She did it without dropping a set. It was just the second Grand Slam tournament of her career. Let's compare this achievement with other legends. The great Serena Williams won her first major in her 7th attempt. Even Steph Graf needed to play in almost a dozen different majors before winning her first. And so did many other tennis legends. 18-year-old Emma won hers in just her second attempt. And you can imagine what came after. Massive fame, media PRs, tons of endorsements, and lots of money. Having reached the pinnacle of her career even before it fully got started, Emma hit a brick wall and everything came crashing down. What really happened? I'll tell you. Emma turned pro in 2018 but kept on playing junior tournaments. During the pandemic-shortened season, she spent some time on her academics. Things got fully going in 2021. Emma hired her coach, Nigel Sears, and made it to the 4th round of Wimbledon with a ranking outside the top 300 after receiving a wildcard entry. She became the youngest British woman to achieve that feat, but it didn't take long before she ditched her coach Sears for Andrew Richardson, who was one of her youth coaches. Although that move raised eyebrows, it was justified after she won the US Open as world number 150. However, less than 2 weeks after her fairy tale win in New York, Emma decided not to stick with Richardson. British coach Jeremy Bates was the one who would be at her side for the remainder of 2021, during which she lost at the first round of Indian Wells, quarterfinals of the Transylvania Open, and round of 16 of the Linz Open. Despite ending her breakout year on a less than stellar note, points from Raducanu's Grand Slam win were enough to bring her into the top 20, and she announced that she had hired Torben Beltz as her new permanent coach. 2022 was her first full year on tour, and it came with lots of troubles. Second round exits at the Australian Open, French Open, and Wimbledon, and a first round exit at the US Open. The year was plagued with numerous withdrawals and underwhelming performances due to injuries. She suffered a humiliating loss to Elena at the Sydney International. Next, she complained of blisters on her racket hand following her loss at the Australian Open. She withdrew from the Monterrey Open following a small left leg injury and lost in the first round of Miami Open. The coming weeks didn't bring any respite. She suffered another blister on her foot, and the vicious cycle of injuries, losses, and underwhelming performances ultimately ended with the sacking of her coach Torben Beltz after only 5 months of working together. She then hired Louis Kaya from the Lawn Tennis Association to help her with her technique, but her fortunes didn't improve. Rather, she saw early round exits at Madrid, Rome, and the French Open after a back injury had troubled her. Although things didn't improve throughout the season, Emma Raducanu managed to crack at the top 10 in July, benefiting from Wimbledon's loss of ranking points. A month later, she began working with yet another coach, Dmitry Tursunov. After a horrible summer hardcourt season by her standards that saw her fail to defend the points she earned last year, Emma fell outside the top 80. The injuries, retirements, and withdrawals continued, and by the end of the year, she had resorted to another coach, Sebastian Sachs. That's how many coaches now? Have you been counting? Many people expected that Emma's redemption would start this year. Indeed, it has in some way. Early on, she suffered from an ankle injury and her wrist problems returned. After dealing with injuries for long enough, a permanent solution was needed, and Emma decided it was time to get the surgery over with and is now set to miss the remainder of the clay court and grass seasons. If you've been following this analysis, you might be able to take a guess on Emma's problems already. So let's highlight the problems one after the other. What's it like now? 7 coaches in 2 years? It has become quite clear that poor management is one of Emma's biggest problems. Going from coach to coach in a bid to resuscitate her career, she ended up looking really lost. Each coach came with their own ideas and philosophies. For instance, under Torben Beltz, the usually aggressive Emma became a more defensive player and wasn't quite producing the results she expected. Many fans have questioned her decision to get rid of a coach who gave her her only Grand Slam title so far. Others have also questioned about her not being patient enough with some of the other coaches, but even as a junior, she had many coaches, so it's something she's always done. However, the point is Emma probably has one of the worst management seen in the sport. But it isn't just about the management. There is an even bigger factor at play. Many good players do not even get to win a major throughout their career, but Emma did it even before her career fully got going. With that comes a lot of attention, publicity, obsession, and criticisms at the slightest turn. Just last year, a man was caught stalking Emma at her home and was given a 5-year restriction restraining order. The daughter of a Romanian father and Chinese mother born in Canada and living in the UK since she was a kid, Emma got hyped by the press in different countries. It was global. Being overhyped by the press ahead of the more consistent players hasn't helped the situation either. Rather, it has put more pressure on her. Quick question, do you think Emma Raducanu is overrated? Of course, with the publicity and attention weren't totally bad because she got to make lots of money from endorsements. Nike sponsors Raducanu for her clothing and shoes while Wilson sponsors the rackets. Having seen her marketability rise to insane levels following her US Open victory, her net worth jumped into the millions of dollars. In the span of 3 months, she became a brand ambassador for Tiffany & Co., Dior, British Airways, and French bottled water brand Evian at the end of 2021. More sponsors such as Vodafone and German automobile manufacturer Porsche, among others, came in 2022. Which leads us to another question. Which other female tennis star does Emma remind you of? Are you thinking of Anna Kournikova because of the hype and maybe endorsements? Although in Kournikova's case, she made tons of money without winning a major. Fans would also be hoping Emma's apparent struggles are quickly abated and she doesn't fade into oblivion on the tennis court like fellow Canadian Jeannie Bouchard. Emma's continuously active engagement and commitment to numerous sponsorship brands has left many fans feeling like she put those things ahead of her tennis and is not focused on her game as the 18-year-old who once ruled the world. Just like Bianca Andreescu, Emma won at a young age and experienced physical problems afterward. It's worth noting that some of these injuries are not caused by her style of play. Emma has a strong forehand and a serve that peaks around 110 km/h. She takes the ball early and hits hard down the line. She has good movement and footwork at the baseline, but also has no problems coming up to the net. Her style of play doesn't necessarily make her injury prone. Just like Andy Murray, her physical problems seem to be congenital, the underlying bone problems on her wrist and what have you. So fair weather fans might want to give her a break at least. Another significant reason why Emma has received a lot of stinging words from some fans is that they feel she has a weak mentality and has the tendency to retire at the slightest opportunity. For some of them, they feel the excuses for her poor performances had become one too many and the weight of expectations had made her crumble under pressure. Are you also part of those who believe she's a one-slam wonder? I'm not saying your points are invalid, but don't you think it's still too early to judge? Let's revisit this combo in a few years' time. In her handwritten note, Emma stated that she had been having problems for the last 10 months, but even before then, she already had a horrible 9 months where she lost 15 matches and only won 11. Thrown into the ocean of glitz and glamour, Emma Raducanu has at times looked like she's drowning as a result of the early success. The way forward is by dealing with her physical and managerial problems before anything else. It is safe to say that she's on the right track as she has had 2 out of the scheduled 3 surgeries. Who knows what will follow? What do you reckon? It's time to go back to the drawing board for Emma Raducanu. She must think carefully on how to respond to the pitfalls she has faced so far. Whether that means going back to her first coach, revamping her entire game, getting a new physio, psychologist, sitting out the entire 2023 season, or getting a fresh start even if it means playing lower tier events. What has happened to her is nothing new, so she must take lessons and inspirations from past legends in the game, many of whom have navigated similarly difficult spells throughout their careers. Emma Raducanu turns 21 in November and still has her whole career ahead of her. Whether she's overrated, overhyped, or an overachiever is a debate that would likely go on for a while, but the important thing is how she responds to the numerous questions thrown at her. On the men's side of tennis, it is Novak Djokovic who, despite all his unbelievable achievements, is being asked questions because of his recent performances on clay. You should watch this next video now.